What's up, guys? So I have a React application that has an authenticated route. And what I like to do is redirect users if they're not authenticated. Now, the authentication check that we're going to do today is going to be all client-side using React Router. So we don't even make a request to the server to check if the user is authenticated. Now, this is, not 100% for sure. They could be still not authenticated if they get past this point, which is okay. We're just kind of doing an initial check. So like people who do not have, we're doing authentication through JSON Web Tokens. So someone who does not have a token or the token's expired, we could just immediately, instead of going to the server and then the server telling us that, we could actually check those, whether that's true here on the client side, and then just redirect them to login. So that's what we're going to do. So we should see less of these GraphQL not authenticated errors. So to do this, we're going to be using React Router, and we're going to be creating like this little private route right here. And it's basically just going to check to see whether they're authenticated. This can be any kind of function, and if they're not authenticated, we redirect them to any page we want to. In our case, we want to redirect them to login. So I'm just going to go to the index page here. So this is where all my routes are. I'm going to create a new component here called private route, and I'm actually going to name this, I'm just going to say an AuthorOut. So we're past the component and ..rest. So here for the route we're using a regular route here. We're saying check if they're authenticated. If they are, render the component. If not, redirect them somewhere. So we're going to do a different function than this. So we'll create a new function called check auth. And then we'll put that here. So check auth will return whether or not we're authenticated. And we don't have to worry about passing the state. Here is for if you want to redirect them after they log in, but we're not going to worry about that. So let's clean this up slightly. All right. So just to recap, we're checking the auth, rendering the component. If not, we're redirecting. So really we're going to just need to put our information here that we want to use to check whether they're authenticated or not. And once we do that, all we do is, for example, this auth route, I'm going to, instead of using route, I'm going to use AuthorOut. Instead of render, I'm just going to pass in the component. Oops. The auth component, because we're rendering it and passing the props inside of here. Okay, so in our check auth, the first thing we want to do is grab the token from local storage. So local storage.get item token, and get the refresh token as well. So then we're going to check if not token or not refresh token. We know that something's wrong. They should have both these tokens if they logged in, so we can return false. And at the end, we're going to return true if all the conditions are met. All right, the next thing what we're going to do is check if we don't really care as much about the token, because as long as the refresh token is valid, we can get more tokens. So we're going to check if the refresh token is valid. Now the way we need to do that is actually first decode the token, and if it's successfully decoded, then we then check if it's expired or not. So to decode this guy, we're actually going to use this library right here called JWT decode. So let's go ahead and install that. So I'm here in terminal, just going to do yarn add JWT decode. And then once that's installed, what it'll allow us to do is just run it on a token, and it'll return back just the object. And then it'll throw an exception if, for example, if they didn't pass in a token, maybe they just, in their token they have that, right? That's not a valid token. It'll throw an error. So what we'll do is we'll do try catch error. we don't even care. So if there's an error, we return false, right? We don't need to print the error or anything, but we do need to import decode from JWT decode. So here, I'm going to say const, and I guess what we can actually do is do const and say payload is equal to decode of refresh token. And now one of the properties of payload now is going to be the expiration date, which is going to be a number like this. It's going to look something like that, right? I want to check and see if payload, and actually we can just grab the expiration date because we don't care about any of the other things. And we can say if expiration date is less than new date dot get time. So what does this mean? Let's think about it. So if the expiration date is less than new date, that means it's expired, right? Because this is going to tell you if it's expired. The bigger number means later in time. So in this case, we would want to return false. And that's it. So this is our check auth function. Just to recap how this works, we first check whether we're given tokens, whether they're in local storage. If not, we return false. Then we first try to decode the token. If it can't decode, we get an error. We'll return false. Then if it's a good token that we got from the server, we'll check if it's expired. If it's not expired, we just keep going and we return true. So now we can go over to that page and watch this in action. So I just want to make sure though, expired less than new date. Yep, that looks good. So React app. So, we need to import. So we're using a new component called redirect. This is from React Router DOM. So just need to add that. And okay. So it's okay, so it just redirects us to this page, right? It shouldn't be. So the only thing I can think of is I have this backwards. So let's do console.log the expiration date and the new date dot get time. So let's see what both of those values are. Because that token should not, it should be good because I just logged in. So if we go to auth, prints out the two things. Okay, so one of these things is in probably milliseconds while the other one is in not milliseconds. So expiration date here is a lot smaller than this. So so let's Google real quick what JWT expiration date. So let's see what format that's in. I think it's milliseconds, but I don't know for sure. It should tell you what it is. The ID token, refresh token, the token, click here to different types. We don't care about the types. It's for 10 hours. Actually, this number right here, set the expiry date for JSON web token. So what time format is JSON web token expire? Sorry, these are numeric dates. A JSON numeric value representing the number of seconds. Okay, it's in seconds. So new date, get time, JavaScript. Okay, so this is giving us milliseconds, so we need to convert milliseconds to seconds, which I believe is just 100. Yeah. So divide by 100. No, 1,000, right? So 1 millisecond is equal to that many seconds, so it's 1,000. So here we divide u by 1,000. So now if we log it, let's see if we get redirected still. And we don't, we see it here, and we can see, all right, that looks better. All right, so we just need to divide by 1,000 there. And so notice we are seeing it here, but now if, for example, I'm going to try to, in incognito, go to auth, you'll notice how I immediately am redirected to the login page. So cool. So we're doing this all client side. We didn't have to make a GraphQL request to our server to even access this stuff. So that's pretty neat, right? We're saving performance. We're saving time that our server doesn't have to handle stuff. We're just checking on the client before sending it. So that is it for this video, guys. I recommend just creating some little checks with your routes, right, to save some time. So you can wrap now. We can create any type of route we want. I could create more of these, and we could say auth2 and maybe pass different components. So now you have a reusable component that we just made that you could basically prevent people from going to unless they're logged in, which is pretty nice. Alright, so that's it for this video, guys. I will see you in the next one.